Parents of Reddit, how did your son? Daughter, sir, when you over it was my parents actually when my mom first met. My dad, he was working in an auto body repair shop, actually damn good at what he does well. To surprise my mom's dad, he borrowed my grandfather's 1968 SS Camaro, which had been nearly totaled in a car wreck a few years back, and completely repaired it when they first met. My dad shook my grandfather's hand, said, Mr. Haines, my name is Kevin, why don't you come outside? His Camaro was sitting outside looking almost brand new. My mom says that was the only time she has ever seen her dad cry, not a parent but a sister who is fiercely protective of her brothers. My eldest brother, sir, was terrified of me. I'm quite aloof, I get it. The defining moment of my coming to love her was when we visited the zoo on the way and she saw a little girl getting a butterfly facade painted on her. She aged 28, wanted the same thing. My brother said, no, no way, don't be ridiculous. At sea, she said nothing more about it. Just went about her day. Our author later. She went to the bathroom. She took a while. She returned with a butterfly on her face and the biggest smile I have ever seen her, managing to cause this look of total despair but also love on my brother's face. Was the moment. Edit. Just in case you're wondering, my brother is not a control freak. It was cutesy, flirtatious kind of behavior on both their parts. No need to raise alarm bells. Her father was always very cool on me. Distant conversations usually went, hello, sir, how are you? But I was reserved to being disliked forever until I heard him talking about football. I mentioned how I was quarterback in high school and saw his eyes light up. We talked for a solid 2 hours about football, NASCAR, F1, and all the other interests we shared that he didn't care to learn about for all those months before. My sir recently told me he was bragging about meet of the guys who sit near them at the local triple A baseball team's home games. We're BFF now, and it's even more terrifying than when he ignored me. I worked in an ice cream shop with my current Sue, and her mom came in one night without knowing it was her mom. At the time, me being friendly, I struck up a conversation with her while I got her ice cream and food for her. 3 months later, I start dating the girl I worked with, and I immediately recognized her mom when I met her for the first time. The first thing her mom said was, well, you already have my approval. My parents are pretty traditional and really liked the idea of any potential boyfriends asking my dad's permission to date me. However, after 3 years of undergrad living away from home and inevitable casual BFS, they had kind of come to accept that this was not going to happen. I made this joke after a one-night stand made it clear he wanted to date me. We went on a few dates and things were progressing well. However, I was surprised one day to hear that my father and brother were coming to visit the city for a day. Turns out this guy had contacted my brother on Facebook and was taking him and my father out to lunch to ask permission to date me. This one night stand is now my husband, my now husband, won over my mom forever. When after meeting for the first time at a college cocktail party my parents were visiting for parents' weekend, he put his jacket over my shoulders when we all went outside. It was a brisk full day and I was in a dress. She has always said she likes him from that moment on. 33 years later, she wasn't wrong. I know the exact moment I won my wife's family over. I could see it in her father's eyes. It was high school before we started dating. The first time I went over to her. Actually, her father and 2 brothers are all pretty tall and I'm average height. It's a very alpha male household, and they had this thing they'd like to do to potential boyfriends. So when my wife left the room to go to the bathroom or whatever, all 3 of them stood lined up shoulder to shoulder and loomed over me, blank-faced, glaring down. No words, no motion, just staring and looming. I found out later that her last boyfriend almost cried when they did this to him. I've always been really socially awkward, but an odd part of that awkwardness is that I'm never intimidated by people. I don't know why, but they just don't frighten me. I slowly stood up, looking them all in the eye, and then poked her dad right in the tummy. I said, boop. He stared for a second, and then a giant grin split his face. It turns out that he's a massive goofball. From that moment on, I was a member of the family. The whole dating and marriage thing was just a formality to them. It is AAWW. Thanks for the gold, guys. I'm glad my near murder could bring you some laughs. My so bonded with my dad immediately by their mutual hatred of mild as sisters, ex-BF baby daddy. Actually, my younger sister also had a trash can of a BF at the time when my son showed up with a car, a stable job, and actually treated me with respect. It was like a Miracle, I think this is how my boyfriend won my family over too, just by being not being my ex and having a car. You guys are making me feel very dateable, thanks. Upon meeting my teenage daughter, Sashi was always embarrassed by me at that time. Sashi says, Dad, are you drunk? It's the middle of the day, and of course, I wasn't drunk. I hesitate for a moment, and then just answer yes. Anu so looks at me completely straight faced and says, same sense of humor wins me over with the question wrong, so here's my real answer. I'm a martial arts instructor. Among other things, I caught my daughter's boyfriend looking at my belt rack, 5th degree black belt and trophies from when I was much younger, and he said, are all those yours? Yep, so you know how to throw someone yet? Could you teach me how much of a setup did I need? I took him into the backyard and threw his skinny as around for about 45 minutes, and every time he hit the ground, he got back up with a huge smile and said, that was awesome, show me how. So I took him to my class with my daughter and had her practice throws on him. He never complained, never flinched in, never itched. After class, one told my daughter I likes him, so she broke up with him. Edit, thank you for the gold. I won my boyfriend's now husband parents over by throwing a party. It was his birthday, and I had gotten a good number of people to show up for a surprise party. He was on the phone with his parents when he walked in, and everyone yelled surprise. He got all teary-eyed and told his parents, I have to go, it's his surprise party. I didn't know I had so many friends. For good measure, I sent them photos of the party as well. His mom particularly liked the set of photos that showed my Sue and friends battling a bomb-shaped grill that caught on fire and exploded. Edit, OMG, my first ever gold. Thank you, kind person. My good friend got dumped by his GF halfway through college after she cheated on him. Her dad called and said, my daughter is a ducking moron. You know, there is always Sue and Sel, her 1 year younger sister, taking good care of my daughter during Hurricane Sandy. My wife's dad told me I'm the only boyfriend he ever liked. He said my strategy of whenever I would call to talk to her and he answered the phone, instead of just saying, is my wife there? Or can I talk to my wife? I would always say, hi Anna, her dad, how are you, and make brief small talk before asking for her. It wasn't a strategy, it's just how I was raised in der southern politeness, but it worked. My boyfriend, one might add, over by taking me to several different doctors' offices when I was having medical issues. About a month after we started dating, he also stayed calm enough to speak with my parents on the phone and tell them what was going on while I was freaking myself out too much to talk. My dad has always said he likes him well enough with previous boyfriends, but has told me several times he likes my current boyfriend a lot and thinks he's a good guy. I agree. My son's GF won us over by helping us bring him back to dressing like a human being, despite being an olive skin, thanks to my distant Italian relatives and my wife being Hispanic middle class boy from the suburbs. He dressed like a hardcore rapper. He looked ridiculous as besides everything else, he was almost 6 feet tall, so sagging pants shorts have to be elephant sized to work. I'm not sure why he went through that phase, as even during it he was fairly well mannered. There's a lot of other reasons, not least of them being that she is the daughter of a childhood friend of my wife and thus from the same ungodly remote town. She's from current population 150-ish. I cajoled and demanded, and he didn't change. She batted her eyelashes, and he did. She won him an is. I'm the Sue of the daughter in this story. My girlfriend's dad basically hated me until the time we drove together down to Monterey from Austin and had to make conversation for 7 hours and pretend it wasn't awkward. He's an engineer, so I went with that and casually mentioned my desire to get a small CNC lathe for metal fabrication, or possibly build a basic XY controller to attach to a traditional lathe. Turns out his final project for graduation at college was to build a CNC lathe. We nerd it out and started discussing the pros and cons of stepper motors versus servos. Then the conversation moved to our doing us, and the rest is history. Now we get along handsomely, and it makes my girlfriend very uncomfortable. My fiance won over my parents individually, but nothing beats my stepdad. My stepdad loves fun facts, and they are always fairly obscure, and I can never answer them, but that only makes it more fun for him. So the three of us, fiance, stepdad, and I, are sitting around watching The Simpsons, and my stepdad goes, who's that band when Spanish Fleet comes on? My fiance immediately answers with Herb Alpert in the Tijuana Brass. My stepdad was dumbfounded, and I'm pretty Sure, that's when our relationship got his seal of approval as a brother with a sister who has had a pretty awful selection of boyfriends. There has only been one who has impressed me. He didn't make some huge gesture or do me favors or try to win me over. He cared about her and stuck around. It took a while, but that's the only way that he was ever going to get any trust or admiration. I won my father-in-law over the first day I met him. We met on Thanksgiving. The girlfriend took me into a room separate from all the other family members where he was waiting. He looks me over, shakes my hand, and says, "So my daughter tells me you're a professional wrestler." I confirm that fact. He leans in and says, "Go with it." Her father then grabs me by the hair and drags me into the living room with a large chunk of her extended family, throws me over the couch and yells, "Don't you ever touch my daughter like that." I try to get back out, but he lays me out with another punch and kicks me out the door. The family was shocked and confused until we come back into the house and he introduces me as his daughter's new boyfriend, and we have a laugh about it. He loves to tell that story. He even told it at the wedding 8 years later. I am very happy to have him as a father-in-law. My sister just got married to a guy she was dating for I think 6 years. I was pretty hesitant at first because my sister had been with a dude who was still stalking her at the time. I was really obsessed with car racing. I remember he and his family came out for a Barbie. I was an angry dude, so I just stayed inside and watched car racing, and then one of his family members came in and started talking to me about the American Lemons race I was watching. I guess he had done some work with one of the team's engineers. I can't remember exactly what it was, and then this guy said that the dude my sister was dating was also into cars and racing. That's when I figured this guy's alright also. Whenever I go to visit, we try and get a few races of Forza, and I'm pretty sure he cheats also. B, if you are eating this, all the awesome dead baby jokes help your cause. Keep them coming. They're hilarious. My fiance won my mom over before she even met him as my boyfriend. She knew him before as my brother's friend. He's risking a lot by dating me. My brother and all his friends who looked at me as a little sister. She knew how serious he was about me before I even said anything. That and the fact he completely spoils me and dotes on me completely. Also, the proposal made her very jealous. When my dad first met him as my son, he had an our own conversation with him. My dad hates conversations and isn't a big fan of people. Our daughter came home from college with a boy she had been dating for a few weeks. They weren't serious, but he lived too far away to go home for Thanksgiving. That weekend, her old high school flame dropped by. We didn't like him much. He had been very abusive when our daughter was dating him. When he showed up, he tried to convince our daughter to go someplace with him to talk things over. She didn't want to, and so he started getting loud and obnoxious. The new boyfriend was trying to give her some space and not be the possessive caveman type, but when he heard the old boyfriend call our daughter the C word, he came out on the porch and threw a wicked punch at the guy. Unfortunately, he missed and he got the worst of the ensuing scuffle before I could break it up, but he got a few good licks in, and I'm pretty sure some of them would leave nice bruises. Not that I condone brawling, mind you. Old boyfriend sculpted off, and we brought the new boyfriend in and got him cleaned up. He was only 19, but he got a nice cold beer with dinner. They dated a couple of years but eventually broke up. She's had a few boyfriend steps, but he's the only one I ever addressed as son. Music. You. Music.